wait and see if I get anybody on here. Currently running westbound on some secondary road, 162 in Ohio. It's a non-road, and I am working my way west. Took off from the town of Medina, and I'm going to Sterling Heights, Michigan, which is the north side of Detroit. Wow. I'm going to meet this guy coming over this bridge. Ooh, boy, this is some steep roads. Whoa. Roller coasters. Hold on, what's on the other side of this? Wait a minute, okay. Wow, this is hard to do when you're supposed to be going faster. Wow. Alright, I have been busy the last few days. I'm up here in the they're gone. 34 degrees, jeez. They've had me busy the last few days. I mean, I've been doing what in the industry are called turd loads, T-U-R-D. They're real short. And the money per mile is good, but the overall money's not that great because they're short distance. But I have done a slew of them this week because I've been in the core area. Ooh, headlights. And the core area is where you have all the cargo. And I have worked my way down over here by Columbus, Ohio. Dropped off this morning, and then they called me where they were teasing me with loads. 5 of them to be exact. I can get any of them. And then number 6 was the magic number, and I have this 2,000-pound 2 crates of, it's like heavy nuts and bolts, the kind of stuff you bolt your body to the frame on a vehicle. And I am now cruising cross country, working my way over. I stuff the interstates around here because they're toll roads, and I'm going to Sterling Heights, Michigan, which is the north side of Detroit. And this is my favorite time of the day to be driving. It's the middle of the night like this. This is what I enjoy. But this is the back. This is State Highway 162. I have no idea where that is. But I'm going westbound. It has gotten very cold here in Ohio. It is currently 34 degrees. It was 37 degrees just a few minutes ago, and it's starting to plummet. So it's getting cold out here. Hey, hi back at you, Adrian. Adrian, how you doing? Just keeping everybody in the loop. Like I said, I have been busy this week, like little short runs, but every single day I've been running, and it's gotten to the point that it's starting to cut into my sleep a little bit, which sort of sucks. The topic I wanted to bounce around with today are politics. I don't talk politics on here. Everybody's got their own, but I'm looking at this because I'm not a spring chicken. You know, I've been around the block a few times, and I kind of know how these things work. The entire Cold War was fought over communism versus capitalism. And socialism is the financial arm of communism. And New York City just elected a communist Muslim to be their mayor. And a couple thoughts on that. One, remember 9/11? We'll never forget. Well, New York forgot. Completely forgot about that. And the problem with nowadays people that did not grow up during the Cold War. Currently I'd left Medina, Ohio, a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere, to a plant that runs 24 hours a day. It makes these big heavy bolts that put your body to your frame in your vehicle. I got 2 big crates in the back, and I'm going to Sterling Heights, Michigan, which is the north side of Detroit. And this has got me going cross country because this part of Ohio is toll road crazy, and I dodge the toll roads because I don't feel like paying $35 to just drive over here. So I zigzag around cross country a lot. That's what I'm doing. But anyway, socialism is the financial arm of communism. And a couple of things about socialism that are consistent is it fails. It always fails. Look around the world, in any version, it fails because it has a fatal flaw. That is, you eventually run out of other people's money. When 1949, was it, the Chinese had their revolution and the communists took over, and they got mad at the capitalists who were in the country. The government took over, You're 67? Yes, you've seen this. Took over and told everybody, that we're gonna do this right. We're gonna make everything fair. We're gonna make it all easy. And what they did, there was one particular guy I read a book by him. His family owned a factory that made bread. He said 67. Their family had a giant bakery, industrial bakery. Well, the government started controlling the flour. They would only give him a little bit at a time, so his workers are sitting around doing nothing. And he goes, well, I have to start laying people off. And the government said, oh, no, you can't lay anybody off. You have to keep them employed. So he's employing people who aren't working. And then they would give him a little more flour. And eventually the guy went broke. And then the government stood back and said, see, capitalism doesn't work because they manipulate the market so they can't operate. And that's kind of how they get rid of, whoa, train tracks, here we go. Heavy load. Oh, jeez. Wow, boy, that was ugly. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm just curious what 67 stood for. And eventually it collapses on itself because you can't operate with other people's money. They say, oh, socialist society from ground up can't be done. Why? Because it's a bunch of people standing around waiting for somebody else to do the work, waiting for somebody else to pay for it. I mean, that's just it doesn't happen. Well, New York just elected this guy, and young people who don't understand the system, they don't understand how socialism operates. What they see is something where they get to cherry pick their way through it and pull out the parts they like and just ignore the rest of it. So they go, okay, here's all the freedoms I enjoy. I'm going to keep all of them, but I'm going to get free health care and someone's going to pay my rent and I'm going to get all these benefits, but the cost of all this is going to be somebody else's problem. And there's the thing is, those somebody else's are going to go away. And that's what people don't click to. I had a friend of mine, he's a mechanic, aircraft mechanic, and he was in Venezuela working at one of the oil companies, offshore oil companies. And in 2000, Venezuela was one of the most financially viable countries in South America. They had their act together. Well, they voted in a socialist dictator, and the country went down the toilet pretty quick because socialism can't step into a void. They have to step into something that's been built by somebody else. And if you go to Venezuela today, it's a dump. The stores are empty, the shelves are empty, and the place is a mess. And he was down there when this was starting to disintegrate, and he said, you're walking down the street in Venezuela today as a citizen, and the government pulls up next to you in a truck, and they say, why aren't you at work? And they go, oh, I don't have a job. They say, well, you do now, and they grab you and they take you to your job, whatever they decide you're going to do. There is no of this laying around living off the government freebie stuff, is being footloose and fancy free. That's not how socialism works. It doesn't allow you just to kick back and enjoy the benefits of it. These people are reacting. So, okay, we're going to give you your EBT back, but you got to do fill in the blank. There, people are going to snap right to it and do it because they're owned by the government. And the younger generation don't remember this, but like I said, the Cold War was all about this very topic. And the Cold War started to end in the late 1980s, and I want to say it was Romania. Remember, there was the Iron Curtain that kept the West and the East separate because, the East, the walls, put up the fences to, quote, protect themselves from the West, which everybody knew what they were doing was keeping people in the East from running away from the East in that kind of system. So they had to build fences and barriers to keep people in. Well, I believe it was Romania. They opened their borders because they were having all kinds of civil unrest. And so what happens when a ruling class has civil unrest is they release a little bit of pressure, a little bit of the grip, and they think that's going to pacify people, and all it ever does is get them more amped up for more. And one of the things that they did to try to pacify people was to open the borders so people could go west, and then that's what they did in mass. There are videos on YouTube, you can find these videos where people basically jumped in their cars and drove as fast as they could to get to the border. And it was bumper-to-bumper traffic. And the cars were getting across. People jumped out of their cars and abandoned their vehicles and ran to get across the border. There are pictures, videos of statues, monuments to whomever, and people would hang their keys on the monument with a note, with an address. Here's my house. Here's the keys. You can have everything in the house. I don't care. I want to get away. And people just abandoned everything and ran across the border just because they were afraid it was going to slam shut again. That's how joyous the socialist experience was. A kid I went to high school with back in the 80s used to live in West Berlin. And if you remember, Berlin was 90 miles behind the communist Iron Curtain in East Germany. It was just a kind of a fluke how they did that. But there was a walled city. Berlin today is a big city. Well, back right after World War II and up until 1989, there was East Berlin and West Berlin, and the communist socialist government put a wall around West Berlin so people couldn't escape to it. Well, he lived there, and he said that the apartment he lived in was right up against, there's like a little single lane road, but then there's a little wall. And he said from his bedroom looking out, you could look into East Berlin, but if you walk through the apartment, the other side, you would see into West Berlin. He said on the West Berlin side, it was lit up like a Christmas tree, and there was neon lights and activity and cars and people moving around in stores. But if you walk through the apartment, go to the back and look into East Berlin at night, there was a couple of dim street lights, and that's it. There was no movement, there were no businesses, there was no neon, there were no cars, there were no people. It was just nothing. There was just nothing there, no activity, night and day. But they're voting in a communist/socialist guy thinking, oh, he's going to give us free this and free that. Where does that free come from? Free just means somebody else is paying for it. And while they're doing free bus rides and they're doing free daycare, that money it's more tax money. And New York already taxes people into oblivion, absolutely taxes them to death. Last time I set foot in New York City, it cost $16 just to drive into Manhattan Island in tolls. Just to have the great honor of driving in Manhattan. They tax people to death in New York. My grandfather died in 1995. He was a judge, and he used to get parking tickets in the mail from New York City, 500 miles away. And they would say, you better pay these tickets or we're going to come get you. They do that. They shotgun blast old parking tickets, threaten people, whether or not you park there or not. You just pay it just to make them go away. Well, that's another side way of making money. And now they're saying, oh, we're going to have free daycare and rent control and da-da-da-da. So we're going to tax everybody even more. And they're telling these apartments, which are being taxed to death and they have to pay super high utilities, that you can't raise the rent, but we're going to charge you more taxes and more bills to operate it till there's going to be a point when you're upside down, when you're spending more than you're bringing in. And that's why the rents are high, because the cost of everything else is high. But to limit how much you can charge in rent while simultaneously charging you more money to live to the people who own it that's not going to play out well. In the great statement about socialism, they always say that you can vote yourself into socialism, but you have to shoot your way out. So there's going to be a lot of people thinking this is great, he's going to do this, and then the other shoe's going to fall when they start finding out where all this free money is going to come from, which is you. You're going to be paying that out of your pocket. Again, that money doesn't just appear. It's absolutely crazy that people all around the world for decades now have gone to lengths to escape socialist communist governments, to get away from it. And then they come here and try to establish it here. If you're so fond of that type of government, why don't those people pack up and go there? You get everything you want. You want socialism? Go to Venezuela. It's awesome. Go down there for a week, and then you can come back and report how wonderful the experience was. Go do it. They'll bring that garbage here, and then what's going to happen is these people are going to get tired of it real quick because their taxes, their sales tax, they're going to get jacked to the moon. They're going to pack up and run and go to non-socialist areas, probably red states. And then they're going to go, well, we need to bring that here, a different version, a better version of that here. And that's what happens, like the California crowd. They leave California, they move to Texas, and they try to bring California politics. They move to Utah, California politics. New Yorkers, same way. They get out and they bring their politics, even though scared of affordable rent. Well, what's affordable rent? There's the base cost of doing things. Everybody that goes, like, you have a job, you don't make a lot of money. Oh, I just won't pay the rent. I'll just live for free this month. Well, there's somebody that owns that building that has to pay for the apartment building, and the taxes and the insurance, which are catastrophic. We live in a townhouse complex, and I think 66 units, and I think last time I saw it, seems like it's $36,000 a year for insurance for 6 buildings. 3, 4, 5, yeah, 6 buildings. They're paying $36,000 a year. There's no socialism. Yeah, well, it's a socialist system now. I don't know. I'm trying to read your word here. Fascism? Well, yeah, but that is a socialist government because they were doing really good, and then the government steps in and goes, okay, now that you guys are prosperous and you're making lots of money, okay, we're going to step in and take over and make it fair. Oh, okay. So over here you got somebody working really hard, and you got somebody over here who's doing absolutely nothing, and they're going to have the same results. Well, what's the point of working really hard if you're not going to get anything from it? And then everybody just kind of drifts down into neutral. That's what happens. Now, I've heard of people, I've met people who've been in countries where they're working in a factory, a job they were assigned in a socialist government, and they're making a minimal amount of money, and the guy that works across the table doesn't show up for work more times than not, and he still gets the same paycheck he's getting. Eventually you say, why am I doing anything? I just, wow. But it's going to take about 6 months. You go interview all these people that think having this guy in charge is a great idea. Wait 6 months and then see what they think. And the people who are voting for him aren't the people who are paying the bills. They're not the people that pay the tax. These are the people that live off the taxes, and they're going to go, yep, my life's not going to change. Everything's going to be the same. It's just nothing but benefits. It's a great, free ice cream for everyone, except the person paying for the ice cream, which, I don't care. But that's where we're at, and it's a sad state of affairs. If you like that kind of government, there's plenty of places in the world where you can go live under that system and live in squalor. Go for it. But as far as what's affordable rent, if you go out and build an apartment complex, you're spending. You start out and you usually can't even buy the land. You have to lease it. So while they're building the apartment complex for the next 2 years, you're paying the lease on this dirt that the apartment's being built on. And there's all the delays and all the government regulations and the paperwork and the engineers and the permits. And there's just, and then you pay all this zillions of dollars to get it built. Construction and materials, and then people come in at night and steal half your material. And you're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to get an apartment complex built. And then the government steps in, okay, well, we're going to charge you all this tax on this now improved property, and your insurance is this, and your commercial insurance, and you got to pay this water bill, which is, again, it's not like a house water bill. It's a catastrophically higher water bill. You got to pay that, and then you start getting renters, and half of them pay on time, and half of them don't, and you're constantly behind the 8 ball trying to get caught up, and people break stuff, and you have to fix it, and stuff gets worn out, and people go, oh, I lost my job, so I'm just not going to pay rent this month. And then you're constantly fighting that. It's just, and then to have someone say, oh, you need to lower the rent. Well, I'm not even caught up to what I owe for my monthly bills just to keep the building open. This, I don't know, this is just a bad thing. I'm gonna watch it unfold, and I just don't think it's gonna be pretty. So, like I said, I left Medina, Ohio, from a plant that makes these heavy nuts and bolts, and heading to north side of Detroit. And I told my GPS keep me off the toll roads because it's like $35. This is ridiculous. Hold on a second here. Looking out the windows, and it's zigzagging down these back roads, which I'm kind of enjoying. And man doesn't have a clue on how business can run. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is having ideas is great. You just pie in the sky. I remember a comic strip years ago, and it was a guy had a chalkboard that was like 30 feet tall and 60 feet wide, and he had all these equations, and he said, I can solve the world's problems, the world's energy problems, with 6 tons of raisins and a raccoon. And he had this massive equation. He goes, see, it's flawless. He goes, yeah, only one problem. Raccoons are allergic to raisins. It's just, you got to have an idea. But yeah, you want to get into politics, you want to run a business, you don't start at the top. You start small. But then again, I don't know anything about this dude they elected, but I'm going to go along with the theory that he's probably never had a job. I'm going to go with he's lived off government tax dollars, and he thinks that work. And now he's got all these great ideas how everything's just going to fall in line the way he likes it because you wave your hand over it. It's just, good luck. Oh, and the government-run grocery stores, they put those in neighborhoods where grocery stores don't go because everybody robs them, so they just shut their doors. There's been a few of those on the East Coast where they set up the government-run grocery stores, and everybody robs those out of existence. And then they need more money to prop them up. Don't you pull out in front of me, you lucky. They need millions of dollars to prop up for all the losses because it's tax money. They don't care, so they throw millions of dollars more. And then those same people rob the store again, and they keep doing it, and eventually they shut the stores down. I think like most of them, if not all of them, have shut down from that. So, just think about that. Anything and everything the government touches is inefficient, overrun, it costs too much money, and the end result is usually garbage. That's just in tradition. But if the government gets involved, it's going to cost too much money. It's not going to work right. There's going to be cost overruns, and it's going to make things worse. That's just what the government does when the government gets involved. So a socialist, communist government wants to micromanage your life and business and how you do things, based on some ideal that somebody who's probably never had a job has come up with. Let's just do this. Wow. So yeah, this is going to be a dumpster fire. This is going to be, short term, I think people are going to like it because they're going to get some free stuff. But when the other shoe drops, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. The guy that ran for office was Cuomo, that guy's a clown. Yeah, he's wasting his time. And then the guy with the hat, he was like a Guardian Angels guy. Yeah, I don't know. You keep New York City. My last foray into New York City was for cannonballing, and that was it. And that's probably going to be my last trip to New York City. Wow, this car's starting to pop up. But that's my fun tonight. Like I said, this is like my 6th load this week. It's crazy. But they're all little loads, little short runs. But I don't mind doing these as long as they keep them coming. But tomorrow's Friday. My scheduled drop for this is 1 o'clock in the morning, and this is one of those weird companies that you have to pick it up at a certain time and deliver it at a certain time, which is weird. If you have it, you get there 2 hours early. Don't you want it? Nope, not these guys. They want it at the time they want it. So I'm currently scheduled for a 1 a.m. delivery. GPS, I'll probably be getting there by midnight, and then I basically have to sit around. And then I get to go to bed, eventually. But that, between Detroit and Toledo, is like the mecca of cargo. And it's tomorrow's Friday, and when I get back on the board, I'll probably be 5 or 6 on the list, so I'll get a few hours of sleep. And I keep telling HQ, I need a big run. I need a weekend run, something that's really long range, and they say be there on Monday. That's what I'm looking for, one of those. And I've had, to date, since I've been out here early in the spring, I've had exactly one California run. Now, California sucks to get out there. The run was great, but once you're in California, it sucks. Their gas was $6.99 a gallon. This was 3 months ago. And mind you, I paid $2.02 for fuel the other day. And you can't park at a truck stop and sleep. They knock on your windows and throw you out or charge you $15. So I deadheaded out of there just to get out of there. I made plenty of money going in, but that kind of sucked. What is this over here? A bunch of people in a lot over here off the road with all their headlights on. Yeah, I pulled over and I saw gas for that price, so my cruising speed is 62 or 63 for good mileage. Yeah, I dropped down to 60, and then I got out of that state as fast as it's taxes. That's, when a politician stands up on that podium during the primaries and during the election and says, vote for me and I won't raise your taxes, he can do that. He or she can do that. But the registration on your car is going to double. Every year they're gonna jack that up. They're gonna put in more traffic light cameras. They're gonna find a way of taking your money. They always do. And the problem with the traffic light cameras, and this is why they got rid of them in Texas, they found this out about 25 years ago when the whole traffic camera BS started. They found out the company, well, there's a few companies that make it. One of the big ones is Martin Marietta out of Colorado. And their sales pitch, was, we will give municipalities and police departments these cameras for free. We'll put them up, we'll install them. Let's see, hold on a second. I've got to do a clean up turn. We'll put them up, we'll monitor, we'll install them, blah, 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 blah. All we ask is we split the revenue with the police departments. And of course they said, sure, it doesn't cost us anything to make money off it. Well, here's the problem. You're talking about a camera that doesn't do anything in the name of safety. All it's doing is making money. It's just a money-generating machine. So let us take a moment in time and sit down and think about, what will people not do for money? Let's make a list here. Anybody got anything? Anything at all? Me neither. So you got this company sitting in Colorado with these computers watching all these cameras, and they go, oh, well, and I actually did some research on this. A red light camera, your yellow light is 3.5 seconds. That's how they're timed. And you go along and whoa, back up here. Sorry, I'm playing with my GPS. All right, your red light, your yellow light's 3.5 seconds, so it's green, yellow 3.5 seconds, and then it goes around. But imagine if you had a computer program that, every 10th light, the yellow light was half a second. Hey, you'd probably generate some more money, wouldn't you? Oh yeah, or just have a program in your system that just randomly makes the yellow light short. Just, here, there, because it's generating more money, and the manufacturer makes more money, and the police department makes more money. They're all happy, and you're driving along, light's green, yellow, red. You're like, wait a minute, that light was super fast. Yeah, sure it was, motorist, pay the fine. That's the problem with those. That's what the problem when they install those things, is they can manipulate it. It's like a speed camera. They have a photograph of your car, and the speed on the bottom of the screen says 86 miles an hour. Why doesn't it say 186 miles an hour? They can put whatever number they want on that screen. And that's how the government's going to continue to make more money. That's they're going to get their money off of you. Believe me, they're going to get their money off of you. That's what they do. So I'm going to save you money on tax. So now you've got this socialist communist that's going to give you all this free stuff, which means he's going to have to find money. They're already taxed people to death in New York City, but now they got to go even higher, way higher, to sponsor this stuff, to pay for all this stuff. The people who actually make money, the people who actually pay taxes, which is not a very big group of people these days, they're going to start leaving. And they're just like, how far can you push? How far can you push people? They get frustrated, they get tired, and there's a point when they just pack up and go, okay, I'm out, I'm leaving. And that's what's going to end up happening, is there's going to be an exodus of people out of New York City. So it's not worth it. But give it 6 months and watch what happens. It's not going to be pretty. Alrighty, people. Just wanted to talk about that today. I was talking to some people about it. Realizing, wow. Yeah, it's going to be ugly. Alright, I'll let you guys go. I'll catch up with you later. Take care.